What makes someone a balanced leader? Hey there, this is your friend and guide, Caroline. On today's Balanced Leader, my incredible guest and I share strategies to help you lead with confidence, stay resilient, and avoid burnout. This isn't just about leadership, it's about thriving holistically, in mind, body, and spirit. Ready to recalibrate? Well, let's dive in and create the balanced life you deserve. Welcome to today's Balanced Leader. I'm your host, Caroline Baird, and today we're talking fourth quarter. Can you believe it's already here? That's crazy. So whether you've already reached your objectives or you're falling short, this podcast is for you. As we enter these last few months of the year, there's a real temptation to ease off the gas. But let me tell you, the final quarter is where you either finish strong or could risk losing momentum entirely. So today I'm going to share strategies to help you maintain focus, push forward, and inspire your team to go beyond the goals set earlier this year. Whether you're the lead of a team of direct reports or you're a key support partner, whether you're in retail, corporate, HR, merchandising, or any other department, this episode is for you. So stay with me and let's talk about what it takes to close out the year powerfully. Let's dive in. So let's talk first about the fourth quarter from an executive's chair. Why is the final quarter so critical? As a leader, especially at the executive level, you aren't just thinking about the short-term results or the year's objectives. You're thinking about long-term sustainability, growth, and momentum. Let me explain that to you. So for an executive, Q4 is a critical period for reflection and future planning, all while ensuring that year-end objectives are met, right? Executives are thinking about budget allocations, resource planning for strategic initiatives in the next fiscal year, year-end reviews, and setting the stage for future growth. They're not just asking, did we hit our targets, but what's next? This forward-thinking mindset is what differentiates great leaders from good ones. So why do executives think this way? Well, it's because we understand that if you lose momentum now, you're already a step behind for next year. You can't afford to let your team or the company coast through the last quarter. And you need to communicate this urgency clearly, consistently, and confidently to your team. And this isn't about applying pressure just for the sake about it. It's about purposeful leadership. This is when you lay the groundwork for growth, success, and transformation. But how do they communicate this to their teams? Well, let me help you understand that. First, they set the vision. An executive starts by painting a picture for the team, right? They articulate why Q4 is crucial, emphasizing that it's not just about closing out the year, but about the groundwork for next year. They highlight the potential opportunities this quarter holds for growth, learning, and development. 2, they tie roles to impact. So leaders make it very clear how each person's role directly impacts the success of the quarter and the future. They tell their teams, your work matters. Your work matters because this provides personal meaning and suddenly employees feel like they're contributing to something bigger than just the bottom line. 3, They create accountability, right? Executives communicate those clear expectations and foster a culture of accountability. But they don't just stop at tasks, they focus on outcomes. They want to make sure my computer froze, sorry. I don't know if this is recording. There we go. They want to make sure that their teams understand the impact of those outcomes on both short and long-term success of the organization. Now that you kind of know how executives approach fourth quarter, how do you get your team on the same page? Well, here's where communication is always crucial. You need to remind your team that Q4 is not just about maintaining what you've already achieved, if you're lucky enough that you've achieved your results for the year. It's about excelling and learning. Whether it's your direct reports or your cross-functional partners, the key is to align everyone on the why behind pushing hard until the end of the year. Let me break this down further for you. Whether it's your direct reports or cross-functional partners, the key is to align everyone around the why. The why behind pushing hard until the end. And this just isn't about hitting numbers. It's about growth, testing ideas, positioning yourself for an even stronger start next year. Well, how do you do this? Let me help you with that. First of all, we want to be transparent about the stakes. Transparency is always your first lever. You need to explain to your team why Q4 matters. Just from a performance retake. You need to explain to your team why Q4 matters, not just from a performance perspective, but also from a strategic one. Share insights into how the work is done now will influence future initiatives. Whether it's setting the stage for the next year's objectives, maybe securing more resources, or even giving the company a competitive edge. People need to know why they're being asked to give that extra push, especially when fatigue might be setting in, and we'll cover that down the road. When they understand the broader context, how their work now ripples into future success, they're more likely to lead they're more likely to feel a sense of ownership. For example, you might say, the work we did in the last quarter not only affects our bonuses this year, but it also determines the resources and budgets we'll be working with next year. How we perform now directly impacts the opportunities we can create for ourselves in the future. Wouldn't you love to hear that from your leader? The second one is connect the big picture to the individual contributions. We want to make it personal, right? Everyone from HR to finance to merchandising. Just tripping over my words today, sorry guys. Next, make it personal. Everyone from HR to finance, merchandising to operation wants to know that what you're doing matters. Don't make the mistake of speaking only in broad company objectives. Break it down for your team members and show them how their role truly contributes to the overall success of the business. This is key for engagement. I'll give you an example from HR that I like. And you could say something like, as we push through Q4, we'll need to streamline our talent acquisition strategy because we need it to support the hiring surge that we're going to have next quarter. Your ability to get ahead of this is going to be crucial for our operational success in Q1 next year. What a great way to show your employee that you really need their assistance. And this applies to any department. Show each person how their role plays a part in the bigger strategy. When people see how their work impacts not just immediate surroundings, but the company's long-term vision, they become more invested. And when they're invested, they perform. Number 3, I want you to revisit your wins and experiment for growth. Because if you've been succeeding in your objectives all year, don't take your foot off the gas. Use this moment to reflect on what worked. This just isn't a celebratory pat on the back. It's an opportunity for a learning moment. Engage with your team in discussions about what key actions and decisions made the most impact. Were there projects or strategies that you initially doubted but turned out to be game changers? And encourage your team to share those insights. Ask them, what were the critical factors that contributed to surpassing our targets? Or what unexpected outcomes can we build on? This isn't just about reviewing past performance. It's about laying the groundwork for smarter strategies in the future. And we don't want to stop there, because if you're outperforming, Q4 is also an opportunity to test those, what we used to call bright, shiny objects you've had in your back pocket all year. Maybe you have some innovative ideas that didn't seem feasible earlier on, but with the pressure off now, maybe it's time to explore those. This is when you can encourage your team to experiment. Make sure you still set clear expectations, but let them explore. Let them know, hey, you know what? High five, we've smashed our targets. So let's use this time to try out some new strategies. And if we can improve even further, we'll be set up for an even more successful next year. What a way to get your people bought in, even when you've hit your objectives. Number 4 is around communicating early and often. You can't set the tone once and expect it to carry through the quarter. Let me repeat that. You can't set the tone once and expect it to carry through the quarter. Regular, clear communication is critical. We know in the HR world, you've got to repeat things 7 times before somebody really hears it. So regular check-ins, team huddles, status updates are key to keep everyone engaged and allow you to course correct if necessary. It's the only way you're going to know what's happening in their world. Be proactive about gathering feedback from your team as well. Ask them, what do you need from me to keep moving forward? Or even a better question, are there any obstacles in your way that I can help remove? This makes your leadership feel supportive, not just directive. You're working with them. And in these check-ins, don't shy away from discussing potential obstacles that might derail your team's focus, like competing priorities or burnout or illnesses, right? We've got absences. Acknowledge these challenges, but reinforce that their effort will now pay dividends down the line. So remember, in Q4, communication is not just important, it's essential. You need to remind your team that this quarter is about finishing strong. It doesn't matter whether they're in retail, HR, corporate, doesn't matter. Every team member needs to understand why Q4 matters from a strategic standpoint and how their role plays a crucial part in the big picture. Now, many of you know I come from retail and HR, so let me give you an example. In retail, holiday sales, everybody knows, are the biggest revenue generator. So it's vital that before your store managers know what promotions are coming, staffing needs, and inventory, we all know that in retail, holiday sales are the biggest revenue generator. So it's vital that your store managers know what promotions are coming, what are their staffing needs and inventory expectations. Clear and early communication is going to ensure that store teams are prepared, empowered, but even more so, motivated to reach those aggressive year-end sales goals. And if you're in HR, communicating changes to year-end performance reviews or planning for hiring pushes is crucial. Maybe you've been understaffed for most of the year, and Q4 might be the last chance to fill those key roles before starting fresh in the new year. Your HR team needs to know what's at stake and how their contributions can lead to organizational success. Not in HR, not in retail? Let me give you a merch example. In merchandising, the final quarter could mean executing on last-minute product launches or figuring out how to manage holiday inventory effectively. We all know it. Communicating with vendors, buyers, and store teams on deadlines and targets can prevent stockouts or missed opportunities, keeping everything on track. And always have a plan B. If something falls apart or gets delayed, which inevitably could happen, you've got a plan B in place and people are prepared for it. Don't leave it to the last minute. Let them know if this doesn't happen, then this is plan B. It also removes some of the angst that many people may have. For corporate teams, like finance or operations, year-end financial closeouts are top priority. Busy. Communicating early with your finance team ensures that everyone is aligned on what needs to be audited, what deadlines are approaching, and how final reports will impact decision-making for the year. They're your partner. Work with them. So when you implement these strategies, you turn Q4 from a time of potential coasting into a period of transformation, which you know I love, learning and growth. The key is to communicate with transparency. Make individual contributions meaningful and keep your team engaged through experimentation and reflection. So as you move through this last stretch of the year, remember, this isn't about coasting to the finish line. It's about setting the tone for what's to come. How you close out Q4 can be the springboard for your next big leap forward. And I've really seen that as an entrepreneur and how I can't just coast for Q4. I really have to strategize and plan for 2025 and what it is that people like you want to know. Great. Now let's shift into the practical steps. I've given you some ideas on why things are the way they are and why it's important, but I want to cover what can you as a leader do to ensure your team finishes the year strong. So I'm going to give you 6 actionable steps you can take away. Feel free to re-listen to them or grab a pen and paper and write the ones down that resonate. Revisit and realign your objectives. Number 1. Start by reassessing your current goals. Are they still aligned with the broader business strategy? If your team is on track or ahead, push them to exceed expectations, right? We've talked about ways that you can do it. Try something new. See if you want to try a bright, shiny new objective. There's different ways that you can do that. But if you're falling behind, refocus on the non-negotiables. Don't be afraid to pivot where necessary, but make sure you're clearly communicating those pivots to your team. Number 2, break down those large goals into short-term wins. Bite size is going to get you success. Sometimes those bigger goals, and I've seen that in my business, can seem really daunting, especially if the team feels like they're behind, right? But when we break them down into smaller, more manageable tasks that can be completed weekly or bi-weekly, it allows your team to feel progress and stay motivated. It doesn't become that daunting, big objective that we have to hit. Just make it small little wins. 3, keep morale high through recognition. This is a big one. Don't wait until the end of the year or performance review time to celebrate success. Take the time to recognize individual and team achievements along the way, no matter how small. Celebrate the wins. I don't care whether it's an email shout out, a quick team huddle, or even a casual thank you during a meeting. Remember, you would know how they want to receive feedback if you've communicated with them and understand your employees. This keeps morale high and shows the team that their hard work is paying off, and most importantly, that you appreciate them. Number 4, inspire your team to think outside the box. This is where you want to inspire that innovation and creativity that everybody has. And as much as Q4 is about execution and hitting target numbers, it's also a great time to encourage that out-of-the-box thinking. Give your team some of that space to come up with innovative ideas and solutions that could give the company an edge going into next year. Some of the greatest thoughts and ideas come from those that are feet on the ground. 5, foster open communication and feedback. I really want you to check in with your team regularly. This is not the time to assume that everything is running smoothly. Ask them for feedback on what's working and what's not. Share any goals that have been realigned. Let the team know exactly what is expected of them during the remainder of the year. I'll repeat that just in case my dog's barking interfered. Let the team know exactly what is expected from them during the remainder of the year, because transparency is key here, as people can only deliver if they fully understand the objective, their responsibilities, and please give them the why. Number 6, let's prioritize collaboration and support. I want you to encourage that cross-functional collaboration within your organization. Q4 is a time when departments can come together to achieve common goals. You ensure your team is communicating across silos and supporting one another, because now it's all hands on deck, and sometimes fresh eyes can come up with some great initiatives. Number 7, I want you to lead by example. Finally, right? Remember that your energy as a leader will set the tone for your team. If you're engaged, positive, and focused, your team will be too. This is where you can really model resilience and determination, showing your team that the work done now is what builds the foundation for future success. So as a leader, it's important to stay engaged and show that you're willing to do the hard work right alongside them, because this sets a standard of excellence. So now that you have a framework for closing Q4, remember that this final quarter is about more than just the numbers. It's about building momentum that will carry you into next year. The energy and focus your team puts into these final months will be the springboard for your next big leap, right? This is where you need to start thinking about what's next. What growth opportunities are on the horizon? Repeat that. What growth opportunities are on the What growth opportunities are on the horizon? What lessons can you take from this year into the next? Get your team to start looking beyond the current finish line and focus into 2025. This will give them something bigger to strive for. And if you're feeling concerned about your team's well-being as we push through Q4, you're not alone. The pressure can be intense. And one of the biggest challenges during this period is keeping that momentum going without letting burnout set in. It's our responsibility as leaders to strike that delicate balance, driving results while ensuring our teams don't feel overwhelmed. Trust me, I know the pressure is high, But remember, you can still push forward while showing care and compassion. And here are some practical strategies to keep your team motivated and energized as we finish strong. First is recognize and recharge. As a leader, I make it a point to not just drive results, but to notice when the people that I work with, my team, need a break. When the work starts piling up and I see fatigue setting in, I don't just push harder. I pause and encourage my team to take a step back, even if just for a few minutes. Remember, I love the breathwork that I'm doing that you can find. It's a free resource on my website. So whether it's a walk, a quick coffee break, a few deep breaths, a mini meditation, recharging is essential for maintaining long-term focus. Flexibility goes a long way. Let your team know that it's okay to take those short breaks or even adjust their schedule if needed. I've seen that when people return refreshed, the productivity and creativity are so much stronger. Then I want you to break down goals for them. Big year-end goals can feel really intimidating if you're near that burnout point, especially with the clock ticking. One thing I found helpful is breaking down larger projects to smaller, more manageable pieces. I do this with my team, emphasizing the importance of taking one step at a time. Every little milestone counts. It's not just about achieving the final objective, because remember, your final objective may pivot and change as you take those steps, but it's about celebrating the progress we make along the way. Because when our team feels a sense of accomplishment week after week, it prevents that overwhelming feeling of too much too fast. It gives them energy to keep going. I want to talk about support and emotional well-being. As a leader, it's important to stay attuned of your team's emotional state. And I've learned that sometimes a simple, "How are you really?" can open the door to a conversation that allows someone to share what's weighing them down. This is where care comes in. Your empathy, your emotional intelligence. It's not just about checking off the tasks on the list. It's about creating a space where your people feel seen, heard, and supported. And if someone on your team is struggling, offer that support, whether it's a listening ear or guiding them towards an additional resource like EAP, an employee assistance program that your company may have. Make sure they know they're not alone. And I want to talk a little bit about EAP services, because sometimes there's a misconception out there, right, of what they do, what they offer. But they're phenomenal. They could provide confidential counseling, stress management tools, and even professional guidance for personal challenges. So even as a leader, you can reach out to EAP and get support, whether it's for yourself or for one of your team members. We never know what's going on with someone through outside of work, right? And showing your team that you care about them and their whole well-being, not just their output, is a game changer. Encourage your team to take advantage of these resources if they need them. It's not a sign of weakness. We have to stop thinking that way. It's a step towards resilience. It's like hiring a coach. It's like reaching out to HR. EAP is just another support mechanism. Let your team know that these services are there for them and remind them their well-being comes first. Next, I want to talk a little bit about creating a culture of openness. I found that when you foster a culture where your team feels safe to speak up, it opens the door for more honest conversations to happen. That includes about workload and stress. We want to encourage our team to communicate if they're feeling overwhelmed, because it's better to address these feelings early before they lead to burnout, or before they create a narrative in their mind that is absolutely negative and the wrong direction, but that's how they feel when they're in that overwhelmed or stressed out mode. We want to create an environment where asking for help is not just acceptable, but expected. Because this transparency ensures that no one feels like they're carrying a burden alone. And when people feel supported, they're more likely to stay engaged and productive, even during tough times. How do we do that? Model self-care. One of the most positive, powerful ways to lead is by example. If you're encouraging your team to take care of themselves, make sure you're doing the same. Take breaks, set boundaries. I've got a program for that if you struggle with that. And show that you're investing in your own well-being. When your team sees you practicing what you preach, they're going to feel way more comfortable prioritizing their own self-care. Because remember, as leaders, we set the tone for the rest of the team. So let that tone be one of balance, care, and intentionality. We've talked about it already, but celebrate progress. Finally, don't wait until the end of the year like we talked about to celebrate. Remember to take that time to acknowledge the wins along the way, no matter how small. Because recognizing their hard work boosts morale and reminds your team that their efforts are valued. And it's so important, I wanted to bring it up again. Sometimes all it takes is a quick shout out at a meeting or a handwritten note to remind someone that they're making a difference. This not only keeps the energy high, but also reinforces that even in the midst of a busy Q4, their contributions and their voice are seen and appreciated. Because burnout prevention starts with genuine care, right? And as leaders, it's not just our job to drive performance, it's our duty to look out for our people. It's our duty. By recognizing when they need a moment to recharge, supporting their emotional well-being, and even creating an environment where they feel safe to speak up, we can keep our teams energized and focused without pushing them too hard. Remember, a healthy, supported team will always outperform a burnt-out one. I hope you found that beneficial. And as we wrap up today, I want you to remember that Q4 is more than just a time to meet targets. It truly is an opportunity to set the stage for future. It's the moment where you and your team can prove not only what you're capable of achieving, but also how resilient and committed you are to growth and excellence. Whether you're whether you're exceeding expectations or still striving to hit those final benchmarks, this is where strong leadership makes the biggest difference. Don't let the weight of the year's end overwhelm you and your team. Instead, embrace it as a powerful springboard for your next big leap. And as we've discussed, finishing strong is about more than pushing for numbers. It's about caring for your people along the way, making sure they feel valued, supported, and energized. When your team knows you have their back, they're more willing to go that extra mile. Not out of pressure, but because they feel invested in the success of the bigger picture, which is not the end of the year. So as you lead your team into the final stretch, take these strategies with you. Align your goals, communicate openly, support well-being, and celebrate progress every step of the way. You're not just finishing this year, you're setting the tone for the next one. Here's my challenge for you. Take this opportunity to reflect on how you want to close out the year. Not just as a leader driving results, but as someone who's shaping the future of your team, your company, and yourself. How do you want to show up? What example do you want to set? It's not just about what you accomplish, but how you lead through it all. So take a deep breath, trust in your leadership, and go finish strong. You've got this. And so does your team with you by your side. I've got free resources available. I've talked about some of them. There's so much more coming, and a huge leadership program that I'm developing behind the scenes. If you're interested, reach out. And I'd love to have you Come and join me and receive my monthly newsletter where you'll get tips and tricks and some education and reflection for you to be that strong strategic leader. Thank you for joining me today on today's Balanced Leader. I hope with new insights and strategies to make this final quarter your most powerful one yet. Keep leading with care, vision, and determination, because I know you've got this. And I'll see you next time as we continue this journey together.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Leader. If you want to go even deeper, then visit my website at carolinebaird.com, find some free resources, and look at all the different ways that I can support you to become your best self. Remember, change begins with just one small step. It's those tiny actions that start you on the path to achieving your dreams and finding balance. And as always, life is an experience. So take a moment to enjoy the journey and appreciate the progress you make along the way. Until next time, keep taking those small steps, savor the journey, and lead with courage and authenticity. This is Caroline reminding you to stay bold, stay balanced, and keep moving confidently towards your dreams.